So, with the release of Louis XI, a lot of discussion about the way DuckTales 2017 has characterized José and Panchito has come up. I'd like to talk about the way that they are characterized in some of their older source material, the way that it differs from their DuckTale appearances, and why some people might be put off by it. Part 1. The Three Caballeros. Although not José's debut film, the 1944 movie The Three Caballeros was the first to feature Donald, José, and Panchito all together. If there's one word I would use to describe their personalities, it would simply be friendly. The film was, after all, made to facilitate friendly relations between the United States, Brazil, and Mexico. José and Panchito spend a lot of the movie just dancing and singing around Donald, showing off their respective countries to him, and overall being pleasant company. The main thing to take from this movie is how it establishes the group dynamic. José and Panchito are often depicted as a lot cooler and more competent than Donald. A lot of the movie's jokes revolve around slapstick involving Donald. However, what makes this dynamic fun is the fact that José and Panchito are never teasing Donald to be cruel. In fact, a lot of the time it seems like they believe Donald's clumsiness is all a joke that Donald is telling. When Donald fails to reproduce the magic trick José shows him in the balloon segment, José laughs. His dialogue during this scene is lighthearted, and he praises Donald for being a very funny fellow. Likewise, when Panchito and José tease him during the piñata scene in Fireworks finale, it doesn't feel mean-spirited. Donald never gets angry at either one of them for having a little fun at his expense, and he can often be seen smiling throughout moments like this. Now keep that group dynamic in mind. We'll touch back on that later. Let's take a closer look at José and Panchito as individuals. From Saludos Amigos to Two Happy Amigos and even his own comic series, José's character has had a bit more development than Panchito's. In Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros, José is depicted as being an enthusiastic tour guide. He expresses his feelings a lot through dance and happily shows Donald the sights and sounds of his home country. Although a lot more soft-spoken than Panchito, José manages to be twice as mischievous. In his comic series, he's depicted as a lazy troublemaker. He's always trying to make some money or impress his girlfriend. He has his moments of genuine kindness in the comics. Notably, one story has him working a seasonal job to make sure his nephews have a good Christmas. However, most of the time he is swindling someone or pulling a trick to get his way. José's character is generally understood as a laid-back slacker who is always in need of a quick buck. His Two Happy Amigos and House of Mouse appearances are a bit kinder to him. In Two Happy Amigos, he acts very similarly to how he is in Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros. He's incredibly friendly and speaks sweetly of his home. He shows an enthusiasm for learning about new places. In House of Mouse, we can see a happy medium between his comic and movie interpretations. He's still very friendly and suave, but he seems to be using his charm to his advantage. Most of the time, he is depicted as very sophisticated, and can often be seen wooing Minnie Mouse, of all people. As for Panchito, there isn't much to go on in comparison. In The Three Caballeros, he's loud and bombastic. When he enters the movie, he really takes on the role of a leader. We get to see more of his character in The Three Caballeros Ride Again. He dreams of owning a big ranch and is very fond of his horse, Senor Martinez. Like in the movie, he's shown to be a sharpshooter. In miscellaneous comic appearances, Panchito seems to have a strong sense of justice and will often butt heads with José. Panchito's character is bold, energetic, and loud. He doesn't make as many appearances in House of Mouse as José does, but when he does, he's always bombastic and excitable. Now, how has their group dynamic changed over the years? Recall how it was in The Three Caballeros, genuine friendship with some good-natured ribbing on Donald's behalf. In The Three Caballeros Ride Again, this dynamic stays pretty much the same. However, here it is much more obvious how much José and Panchito genuinely admire Donald and mistake his clumsiness as genius. Unfortunately, this changes in their brief House of Mouse appearance. Panchito and José seem to bully Donald a bit more than usual, and Donald gets genuinely angry at them for the first time. Similarly, in the ending animation in the Grand Fiesta Tour Ride at Disney World, José and Panchito straight up plug their ears and glare at Donald when he sings out of tune. The slapstick is a bit harsher towards Donald, but they seem to be having fun anyway. So with all that in mind, let's take a look at how DuckTales 2017 decided to interpret these characters. Part 2, DuckTales 2017. First off, I love their premiere episode, The Town Where Everyone Was Nice. They're exactly how you'd think they'd be in a modern setting. Endlessly cool and suave, a perfect contrast to Donald. However, I think the DuckTales writers aren't interested in giving us the same old same old. After all, it's a reboot. We get to see some fun new ideas. In the show, they revealed they were old college friends who formed a band together and are reuniting after years apart. There's a lot of callback sequences that reference the older material. They start out acting very similarly to their previous interpretations. They're friendly, they tease Donald without being overly cruel, and they each have a knack for singing and dancing. They even seem to admire Donald, like they did in the Three Caballeros ride again. I especially love their newfound careers. José as a travel consultant is so perfect for him. And although Panchito isn't much of a cowboy anymore, I can totally see him making it big as an international pop sensation, as he puts it. Donald feels inadequate next to them, and lies about his career. I think this is an interesting dynamic to bring to the group. The contrast between them is getting addressed for the first time. However, by the end of the episode, it's revealed that José and Panchito were lying as well. José is just a flight attendant, and Panchito performs for children's birthday parties. I really love José's line,
"We're not so different from those college knuckleheads after all, huh?"
It shows that they still have some growing up to do. And this time, Donald isn't lagging behind them. It's a fun new take on their dynamic, and I was really excited to see where it would go in Season 3. The next time we see them is in Louis 11. Now, Louis 11 left a lot of the Three Caballeros fans feeling a bit annoyed. For one thing, José and Panchito barely got any screen time in the episode, and when they were on screen, many found their new personalities jarring. Think of it this way. If Dewey and Louie's conflict was the A-plot and Daisy and Donald's was the B-plot, then anything having to do with José and Panchito would have been the C-plot. It seems the two are not getting along. Panchito thinks his singing is the core of their band, and José thinks his dancing is. They act a lot goofier than any of their previous interpretations, and even though that's not necessarily bad, there was no hint to them acting like this in their first episode. Nonetheless, I enjoyed this episode a lot and found the goofiness very fun, but their conflict with each other is solved very quickly and very suddenly at the end of the episode, which leads me to worry that there is no grander plan for these two. I would honestly be surprised if they showed up in another episode that wasn't a finale of some sort. Frankly, there wasn't much room for them to develop as characters with the introduction of Daisy, as well as everything else that happened in the episode. With all this said, is there a better version of these characters in a more modern show? Well, yeah. It's time to talk about.
We're three caballeros, three brave caballeros. They say we are birds of a feather. We're happy amigos, no matter where he goes. The 1, 2, and 3 goes, we're always together. But three caballeros.
Okay, hear me out. Although the show is made for a much younger audience and is filled with goofy and childish jokes, I find the interpretations of José and Panchito in this show really great. There's just enough of their old personality traits from the older source material to appeal to old fans, as well as new twists that make them feel refreshing. Let's take a look at them individually again, and then see how they work as a group. I adore the scene in the first episode where Donald is meeting them for the first time. It lets you know everything you need to know about these guys immediately. José is shown getting kicked off a bus for not having enough money, something I could totally see happening in his comics. He smoothly moves on from this little hiccup and immediately tries to charm the first woman he sees. José is even immediately friendly with Donald like he was in Saludos Amigos. Throughout the series, he tries to use his smooth talking to get them out of situations, usually resulting in comedic failure. I love that they added him having a talent in drawing as well. It's just a small little detail that adds more to him without drastically changing his character. He still loves dancing, but more than anything, his role is keeping the peace in the group with his easygoing nature. Panchito enters this show by jumping out of a plane and refusing to use a parachute in order to feel more of a rush. Much like his appearance in the Three Caballeros, he's the more energetic and loud member of the trio. He's a really goofy character, but it works really well as Panchito has always been the sillier one in the group. In the series, he is hinted at not being the brightest, but he's a lot smarter than the others give him credit for. He still uses his rope, and although he doesn't have any guns anymore, they instead reveal that he's a well-known wrestler. Interestingly, though, he doesn't really sing or play the guitar. Either way, his sweet and naive personality works really well in the group. Speaking of, how is the group dynamic in this show? Considering this show is based around the tied destiny of José, Panchito, and Donald, there's a lot of focus on them trying to work together. Donald starts out really annoyed with the two, and in general, all of them don't really want to fight in some cosmic battle, and instead just want to find treasure. José and Panchito have their same old dynamic of being on the same team while teasing Donald. Slowly though, throughout the short series, they become closer as teammates and friends. Their friendship developing is really sweet to watch, and it's really fun to see them work as a competent team by the end of it. I wouldn't recommend the show to everyone, it is really for younger audiences, but if you're a curious Three Caballeros fan, I'd definitely check it out. Conclusion. I really appreciate the DuckTales writers featuring José and Panchito in 2 episodes of a show already packed with a ton of characters, but I hope if they appear in another episode, they get a little more focus and development. I have only scratched the surface of these characters' histories, but I hope I have done a good enough job explaining why some fans were put off by their new interpretations in DuckTales. A bit ago, I drew Panchito and José as Animal Crossing villagers. A friend commented that Panchito would have the smug personality. I remember being shocked. Sweet, rowdy Panchito, a smug villager? That didn't make any sense to me. If anything, I would have put José as that type. But then I remembered that this friend had only been exposed to Panchito and José through DuckTales. And based on how he is in the show, I could totally see where he was coming from. Changes have to be made to characters to fit newer stories, and if you like their DuckTales interpretations just fine, then I don't see anything wrong with that. On the flip side, if you found the changes too jarring, then I think that's valid as well. The truth of the matter is that, in the end, no matter what, the Three Caballeros will always be together.
Like brothers and brothers, all for each other, Three Caballeros.